Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television, and it's our discussion segment. And this morning we will be looking at the minimum wage. As a fallout of the current inflation level, the only conversation there is, as it appears in the country right now, it's a living wage, a minimum wage that would allow workers, to be able to meet their basic needs of life. The minimum wage in Nigeria is based on a monthly income with an average working period of 8 hours daily and 5 days weekly. Nigeria has a government mandated minimum wage, and no worker in Nigeria is expected to be paid less than this mandatory minimum rate per rate of pay. Employers in Nigeria who fail to pay the minimum wage may be subjected to punishment by the government of Nigeria. The minimum wage in Nigeria has been steady at 30,000 since April 18th, 2019. In 2023, the government of the Federal Republic announced an additional 35,000 naira wage award, which is more like a wage subsidy for 6 months, starting from the 1st of September 2023. On Tuesday, the eve of the Workers' Day, salaries for government workers was raised by between 25 and 35%, backdated to January 2024. As Africa's biggest economy grapples with the worst cost of living crisis in nearly 3 decades, this morning on Daybreak, we will be taking a deep dive on the minimum wage. This morning, our guest this morning is the Director General of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde. Good morning, Mr. Adewale.
Thank you. Good morning, and thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Thank you. Same here.
Thank you very much. The conversation around the minimum wage will basically not go away. We saw Labour yesterday as part of their demand, reinforcing their demands to the federal government, insisting on a 650,000 naira minimum wage. But we also know that the conversation is not as straightforward as most of us, think. There is a tripartite, there is a tripod, to this negotiation. We have the employers, which are largely members of your own association. We have Labour, and then we have members of the subnational, each of them putting up different arguments as far as the conversation around the minimum wage is concerned. Can you help us understand these complexities and why it is taking rather too long, for a pronouncement to be made around what is a minimum wage or what should be a living wage as currently demanded by the Nigeria Labour Congress?
Thank you very much for having us once again. First, we want to congratulate Labour and basically workers all over the world on another successful Workers' Day, notwithstanding the challenges, notwithstanding the issues, both economic, social issues that we currently face. It's not peculiar to our country. I think the world globally is facing different challenges, from war in Ukraine, from the challenge in Israel, Hamas, and all these issues, they have been affecting the global economy. We are just trying to come out of the Ukraine and Russian war with the dynamics, the economic disruptions that it causes in the value chain and supply chain. And then the Israel war also came up with its own complexity. So it's a different stroke for different countries as we currently are having. But kudos to Nigerian workers, kudos to the commitment they've shown, the resilience they've shown, and then the collaboration that they've also owned up to. Having said that, come back to the issue of the minimum wage. Labour asking for insisting on 615,000 is within its rights to make that demand. It's within the right of employers to also make its own recommendation. It's within the right of the subnationals to also make their own recommendation, and the representative of government to also make their own recommendation. Things are desired. Hopefully, when we get back to the committee level, we'll move away from the issue of the desirable to the realities on ground. Because as you are aware, the committee The last time committee met was around this time in April, very in April, first week of April, and all parties were meant to submit their recommendation and proposal, which we believe every parties have done, and the stakeholders, NECA represent the organized private sector, organized labor, the governors forum, the presidency. Everybody have submitted their recommendation, and it was that we'll converge again in April to start concrete negotiation on this issue. Unfortunately, within the meeting was not called through April, which delayed the conversation as we'll have it. The commitment that the committee will do all with best, all that is possible to wrap up the conversation in April, but unfortunately it didn't happen. So we are waiting for the government to call back the committee to wrap up its work so that the government can have a recommendation. It's a consensus that is built from consensus, and make recommendations to the state. The wages that was announced, the 5,000 naira was announced by the federal government last year. Those are wage awards, and they were bipartite conversations. Bipartite, that means two people, two groups, labor and government. It wasn't a tripartite, so it doesn't involve the private sector. We need to clarify that, because you cannot shave my head behind my back. When the battle was not called to the table in negotiation or that conversation, we believe strongly it is binding on the parties that were part of it, that is labor and government. And now, about 2 or 3 days ago, the government made an announcement about 25 to 35% increases in wages in the civil service and some other areas. And we also feel it is between the right of the federal government to make those announcements. There is workers, and he has the right to following it down procedure that they've set for themselves in the public or in the sector or public service. They have the right to do that. Also, it doesn't affect the private sector because those arrangements were being the federal government and its workers. Same when the private sector increases salaries every month. Same for private sector, we negotiate with the sectoral unions and on the sectoral minimum wage every 2 years. We don't call government. So bipartite agreement is allowable, it is valid, it is recognized globally, and tripartite agreement is also recognized, is agreeable, is valid globally, and also tripartite is also valid and agreeable. It depends on the content which those agreements operate. So for now, we don't have a minimum wage. It is hoped that as soon as possible, a meeting will be called, the committee will be called back to finalize its work, send its recommendation to the government, and then the government will do it.
All right, Mr. Ariarinde, thank you very much for those opening remarks. But I would like to get a sense of what the thinking of employers as far as this conversation progresses. We know from some of the contributions we have heard that there is a trade-off. Is the conversation just centered around just increases in salary? Are there conversations around how structural issues can be fixed such that whatever you get in the final analysis is something of value? Because if inflation continues to trend up as we currently see, it will not matter whether you earn £1 million in this economy, it will be wiped off in days. Is that something that features in your conversation as far as this tripartite arrangement is concerned?
The terms of reference for the committee is clear, very clear, unambiguous. Review the national minimum wage, or review the act as it. And in the act, there are about 4 or 5 different key areas. The first one of the areas, the minimum wage itself, the amount. Another area is the issue of enforcement and penalty for those that will not pay, for those that refuse to pay, or whatever those that can't pay. The part of it is exemptions. which group will be exempted from the minimum wage payments, like the MSME, those whose annual turnover is less than 200 million. Because in the reality, by the time you calculate all their overheads, calculate all their expenses, their salary issues, then those people are most likely quite vulnerable. So there was provision for one group that was exempted from paying. Then there is another part, the regularity of the review of the minimum wage. Currently, it's 5 years. Do we maintain the 5 years? We want to reduce it. Now, in between are the issue of reopener clauses. How do we make a mechanism that allows automatic adjustment, so that when inflation is rising, the wages can be hedged against inflation. When inflation is going down, there will be some marginal reduction. Those are part of the conversations. What's the terms of reference of the committee, which is clear. Now, the big issue that you have mentioned, which is quite fundamental, I agree with you, is the bigger issue of the economy. That is within the purview of the government, and we have also made a recommendation as to say, look, if we have a minimum wage of 1 billion naira, if inflation is still high, if the cost of production is still going up, it will neutralize whatever gain or whatever figure we have as minimum wage. Conversely, if the economy navigates itself away from the current state, inflation comes down progressively, interest rate comes down progressively, Naira finds its value, becomes strong, we have security, transportation is good. Now, it doesn't matter in the long run what the figure is, because your 10,000 naira will be strong enough to meet those basic needs, to meet the needs and aspirations of an average person. So there are sides of the coin, and we have all urged government that they continue to deep the reforms and also make the reforms, give the reforms a large dose of human faith, so that those that we are trying to save, they don't die before oxygen comes. Those are part of the recommendations and policy options that we are giving government.
All right. You have also mentioned here how, for some reasons best known to government, we lost that April in that conversation table. Now the Labour people are saying that if they don't say anything concrete by the end of May, then they cannot guarantee industrial harmony. But just listening to you, itemized some of the things that need to be done and how far we need to go, until the end of this process. What in your own evaluation would be the average time needed until we see a new minimum wage in Nigeria?
We used to say that if we all come to the table considering each other's perspectives, labor considering employers' perspective, employers considering labor's perspective, government considering the cries and issues that face employers, if we come to the table in good faith, I can tell you, in 1 week, we can wrap up the work.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
If we come to the table with good faith, come to the table considering the state of the economy, considering the current state of the employers, considering the current state of workers, because those are the key parameters. The needs of workers and their families, the current economic situation, productivity, enterprise sustainability, because everything is on sustainability. So you come to the table with open mind to address these issues, and then focus on the key context of minimum wage. It's a minimum wage. It's not a national wage. The minimum wage is for the most vulnerable. Once we agree, come to the table with that open mind, within a week, we believe strongly that those issues can be
all right. One more question before I let you go this morning, Mr. Adeniran. It's the question around what we currently have as that structure of the minimum wage, and I think you alluded to it in your comment. There had been some argument by the subnational that because these states do not earn equally or are not endowed equally, that it will make no sense to have a minimum wage, an equal minimum wage, say for instance between Lagos and Yobe or Zamfara states, because their earning capacity varies, whether it is in terms of taxes or even federal account allocation, and that states should be allowed, therefore, to determine what a minimum wage would be in the real sense in their own states. And these arguments have reverberated, for several years, even before the last negotiation of the minimum wage that brought it to 30,000 naira. Give me a sense of what you think the ideals should be for a country with the kind of complexities that we manage in Nigeria.
You are spot on, really. The level of development, the needs across the federation differs, really. The cost of living across federation differs, and ordinarily you want to put that into context. But the reality still remains that what we are talking about is minimum, national minimum. National minimum that guarantees, wherever you are living, that guarantees you a decent wage. It is minimum. It is minimum, and it is not the maximum. Every state has the prerogative to build on that, and that is what happens globally. Now, except you have a true, sometimes we call federalism. When it's convenient, then it's still federalism. When it's not convenient, we drop federalism. In a true federalism, where each section is independent, then we might be talking, okay, let the states, let the federal, let everybody have, let local government even have their own minimum wage. But we are not in that seat. And you have a level of regulation or guidance so that you reduce the possibility for arbitrariness. You reduce the possibility for mischief from any stakeholder. I think the national minimum wage still suffers. It's the base minimum. It shouldn't be the figure. So it is the minimum that can guarantee anywhere you are living, either in Port Harcourt, in Kafancha, or in Lagos. It is a minimum that you do not earn, the minimum below which makes work drudgery, makes work slavery. That is the concept. There's a lot of misconception, misdefinition. Everybody bringing their own understanding of the concept of the minimum wage, bringing it to bear, and progressively, as they continue to propagate those concepts online, offline, start accepting it as the true concept. And not, it is the minimum below which the most vulnerable workers should not earn. And we believe that because of the state of our government now, there should be a national minimum wage, while all the states and other sections of the federation can top it, but they cannot go below it. If you give everybody the right to go below it or to fix their own structure, then we'll be setting the stage for chaos.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oyeride, who is the Director General of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Forum, Consultative Association. Thank you very much for joining us this morning and for providing those deep insights and understanding around what indeed is a minimum wage. The barest minimum, you said, below which no employer should go, because otherwise it makes the very essence of the minimum wage completely non-attainable. Thank you very much for your perspective on this program. And we will cycle back to you again in the future, should you have the need to discuss things that border on the perspective of the employer in Nigeria. Do have a great day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.